when you talk about teams being additive or not in a TV deal, I've asked this on behalf of all the BYU fans we have here on this channel. But one thing that was kind of floated there for a little while was that BYU was the one out of the four that the Big 12 added that could potentially actually have been additive to this TV contract. Do you feel like that's accurate, that they have enough of a national reach with their fan base that did it for the TV networks?
Yeah, I don't know, so I don't want to say really, but I don't. My gut is not really like. I mean, I'm not saying they're not added. I mean, it depends what you mean by additive, right? Like Notre Dame's game changing, in terms of, they're just worth a lot of money. They're Notre Dame. They're the number one team on television, especially obviously if they're good. So I don't really know for certain. I've always liked BYU, going back to Ty Detmer and Robbie Bosco. Is that his name? Robbie Bosco.
I think so.
Yeah, it was before your time, probably. But I actually went to the Holiday Bowl when Texas A&M played BYU back in the day in San Diego. That was like the 80s. I think BYU fans, if they're listening, there's Texas A&M just destroyed them like 56-14. But so anyways, to answer your question, I don't know for certain, but my gut would be like, yeah, maybe a little additive, but not that much.
Well, we've talked a lot about commissioners here. Kevin Warren is taking a lot of bullets right now for what's happened with the Big Ten TV contract. Like, how out of the normalcy is it with what's happened? I mean, I know obviously promising the Big Ten championship game to a couple of different networks is probably pretty abnormal, I would imagine. But how big of a deal is this really, and how out of the norm was it for what Kevin Warren did?
I mean, it's really poor form. And that's number one. So yeah, it's very abnormal to promise a championship game to one network when the other network thinks they have it, especially when the other network owns the majority of the Big Ten network, which had the rights to the games to sell to begin with, which is kind of complicated, but that gave Fox a really a driving position in the negotiations and how everything went down. So yeah, that's unusual. The idea of promising night games for Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan without getting that cleared is unusual. That one, I mean, I can't give them a pass for that one, but that one seems a little like, yeah, we'll work that one out. It seems like doable, even though I don't know this firsthand, but from what I've read, those universities have been very historically against playing at night in November. But that one seems a little bit, but you're going to sell a package that for that much money, was it like 350, right? 350 million, I think, for that NBC package. You got to get all the teams, right? It's a lot of money for, what is it, 11, 12 games, and then the Peacock games as well. So maybe it's like 16, 18 games. That's a good number. So you can't just have Rutgers, Maryland on, on prime time in November when they're both, 500 or less. Yeah, it was bad. I don't know. There's no other way to put it. I mean, that ESPN.com article by Pete Thamel was very good. But if you ask like what that was about, yes, it was about media, but it really was about Kevin Warren, and kind of a mess that he left behind. And I think most people think they're going to figure it out. I think they will. I don't think that's going to unwind. It's just not going to be. It's going to be a little slightly less lucrative for the Big Ten schools than they originally thought.
Well, the latest on the scene now to kind of join this conference realignment mess has been the ACC, with all the drama surrounding there. And I know that's not really about, I mean, it is about the TV contract because that's what's locking them in, but it doesn't seem like they have many options on the TV side right now. But what do you hear? I guess I'll just frame it that way. What do you hear from the ACC and what's going on there?
Yeah, well, look, they did a long-term deal, until 2036. I think generally speaking, shorter contracts are better, but when they offer you these, long-term deals, they can be good. They're doing okay financially. I think they're going to try to figure out some other revenue streams, but I think what's kind of lost in some of this and all of this, when we've talked about the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or ACC or whoever, like ESPN, these aren't charities. Like, yeah, they're interested in college sports. They love college sports, the people involved, but they're making business decisions. So I don't think like ESPN there's really not that much incentive for them to do anything different when they have another 13 years on a deal that's pretty good, looking really good right now. So they did a good deal. They really have no incentive. Now, what possibly could happen is, all right, you guys want to tag on, 4 more years, then we can talk and we'll, prorate it and you can get some more money in the near term. But is that going to get you up to the Big Ten? No, I don't think so. So, that's what I think possibly could happen. But the idea that, and I got to be honest with you, I don't really see the case, right? I'm not like, I have I'm not rooting for anybody, but if you have an agreement till 2036, okay, well, you agreed to that because you wanted the long-term guarantee. Now you don't like it. That's all right. Well, and again, it was past commissioners and presidents and the people, right now who have to deal with the headache. They didn't do it. And I guess, again, I'm not an expert on this, but from what I've read in terms of if they can get enough teams to go against the grant of rights, then maybe they can get out of it. But I still don't know if legally, they still have an agreement with ESPN. Like, I don't think you just say, well, we said the grant of rights are out, so that's an ESPN deal. Again, I'm not saying this is going to end up in the courts or anything like that. I just think if it did legally, again, I don't. Courts and languages and contracts are very specific, and they say I don't know the exact specifics of the deal. I just don't know really how that gets unwound for the ACC, and so it's a headache for them. But I don't know how it changes exactly. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe they'll find a way. But it's definitely interesting.
Well, last thing I've got for you, ESPN going direct to consumers, generating a lot of headlines now. That's going to happen eventually. I mean, for instance, in the context of like if the Pac-12 is going to be going heavy streaming with this deal, is it a better thing for them if this is coming up now within the next few years? ESPN pushing everybody more direct, going that route? Like, what are going to be the implications here for college sports fans and these contracts?
So just so everyone understands, because I know everyone's not like following the space as closely. When ESPN goes direct to consumer, it's still going to be on cable. It's not going to be like there's no more cable. So that's not going to change. So if you like your cable system, you'll be able to watch. But they'll be offering. So I know there's like, look, cable is diminishing. It's obvious. Young people aren't getting cable. Some people are cutting the cord. But it's not leaving. Like, cable is going to be around. And most people think when it's at ESPN right now is at 74 million homes. Most people think around 50, 60 million homes is when it will level off. Like, all the people are going to cut the cord who already done that. And the people who never got it, they'll be there. They won't get it, but it'll be like 50, 60 million homes, which at $10 a person is still a pretty good business. They're just not going to make as much money as they used to when it was a unbelievably ridiculous business for ESPN and Disney. So there's a difference though between ESPN direct to consumer, right, and Amazon Prime Video, or Peacock. And the difference is that those are separate services, at least at this point. And so that's not going to be a separate service. That would be, you just, like you have ESPN Plus now, you just have one service where you can see everything: Monday Night Football, all your college football, all your NBA, everything on ESPN. You wouldn't need cable, direct to consumer. Amazon Prime and Peacock, that's a different, Apple TV Plus. Those are separate subscriptions that you need. And so I don't think I don't know what was said exactly. I know some people tweeted at me that was mentioned on like Wilner and Canzano's podcast. I don't know exactly what they said, but it is different. It's like ESPN, yeah, it'll give another offering, but I don't know if it's really, to me, as game changing. It's like, oh, ESPN will just be like Amazon Prime or Apple, and they'll all just be the same. No, that won't be the case. And they'll still have ABC, so they still be able to have broadcast television, which is a big deal to distribute for free. And so it is a big deal. It's not going to happen, from what I'm told, till 25 or 26. So you still got 2 more years if you want to cut the cord and still have ESPN. But it's not apples and apples though, that ESPN will just be exactly like Apple TV Plus if, someone went there, or Amazon Prime or Peacock or Paramount Plus, which is CBS's streaming service. So it is a big deal, but I don't know if it's like, okay, well, the Big 12 still did better going with Fox and ABC, ESPN, even if direct to consumer, it actually just helps them because their fans don't necessarily need cable, but they will because they'll need FS1. So it's like you can't really win. It stinks for the sports fan, quite honestly, because you just need to pay for all these different entities to see all your team's games.
Yeah, gonna get pretty brutal on the fans here. Andrew, appreciate the time. Greatly appreciate it. Where can people find all your work if they're interested in learning more?
Sure. So every day at the New York Post, newyorkpost.com around the country, you can find my work. I have a newsletter every Monday, which is a subscription newsletter that if you want, where sometimes I go into the Pac-12 stuff and the college stuff. And then our podcast is every Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. It comes out Eastern time, Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. And we discuss this stuff all the time. So I appreciate you having me on.